7 over sports. I'm your host, Terry Erickson. Each week, an inside look into sports, wellness, and for me to sit down with a friend of mine who happens to be the sports director at News 19, the anchor since 1995. This week, my guest, the one and only Scott Emerich. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Terry, it's an honor for me to be on a show with another lacrosse sports legend, yourself, Terry Erickson, with all you've done.
Started in Dubuque.
Yeah.
That's where you launched your career.
On air. My on-air career actually started working at News 19 before that in college, behind the scenes, shooting sports and interviews and reporting, but not on camera. My first on-air job in Dubuque, and in fall of '92, I went down there and worked down there, and back then I was a real small shop, so not only were you doing weekend sports, but during the week you were a news photographer, so you were shooting news stories for the other reporters there, so you had to kind of put a couple of hats on. And
so you went to school in lacrosse?
Yeah, UW lacrosse, yeah, okay. 1990 graduate.
Oh, nice. And then in 1995, well, you were a reporter here, but then in 1995 they come to Scott Emerich and say, would you be the news anchor?
Yeah.
The sports anchor. And you said, of course.
Yeah, I was transitioning at the time. I was the weekend sports anchor at News 19, and Chris Roth, my mentor and still a friend of mine, was the sports director here. And he moved on, got a job in Milwaukee, and they were looking for somebody, and I had enough experience in the eyes of the folks at the News 19 to kind of hop into that spot, and I'm forever grateful. Never thought I'd be here this long, Terry. I got to be quite honest with you. I always thought, you know, when you start out in broadcasting, success is measured by the markets you go up and how you advance and where you end up, big market. But I found out as I go along and kept going along, I was like, sometimes you just find your happy place.
Yeah. You look at many other stations throughout the country, not necessarily locally, but you see people jump to different stations, go to different careers. But there's something about WXOW 19 that all these people that we just mentioned stay. Yeah,
and I'll throw our internet director, Kevin Millard, has been there for a long time, longer than I have, and there have been a bunch of people who just kind of have the same group, about 5 or 6 of us have been there a long time, and we just really enjoy each other, too. And I think that's a huge part of it, too, is that it's not just a nice place to work. When you come to work, Terry, it's always about the people, not just about the stuff that you get to work with, the equipment or anything like that. It's about people, and we've always just kind of really enjoyed each other. And it's really rare in our industry that you get that many people to stay on that long in this size market.
So the culture, that's when I was introduced to ABC.
And you mentioned Jeff Lenzen there. Jeff Lenzen was there when I first started working there as an intern in college, and I'll be forever indebted to Jeff. It kind of took me under his wing at that time and kind of showed me the ropes, the real basics. Jim Sosha was there too, and I know you know Jim from here in the community, and those guys really took me under their wings, and I'm always appreciative for those guys, and I always kind of like to pay it forward too whenever somebody young comes into our station. And I've worked with a lot of people over the years. A lot of weekend sports have been our station, and I've always tried to kind of guide them the way guys have guided me at the beginning.
You know, I grew up watching Roy Firestone too, who was
a great interviewer.
Oh man, was he ever good! And you have a lot of the same qualities. You mentioned some of the local people. I also grew up watching Ed Sealstead on CBS, and so I sort of go back and forth to the different stations, like all of us do. Throughout your career, have you looked at any national reporters that you tried to maybe glean some of their style from?
Well, when I was young, Bob Costas was kind of big. He was into everything, Major League Baseball, NFL football, and I admired him at the beginning because number one, of his depth of knowledge of each sport, and also his interviewing style. He was very conversational, and he had a way of bringing out some really good answers with the people he interviewed and that sort of thing. And he was very versatile in what he did. Play-by-play guy, studio host, and an interviewer. So that caught my eye when I was a youngster growing up. And I always appreciate guys who also develop their own style and along the way. And I think a lot of those guys that I watched at ESPN growing up, doing highlights and doing reports, and how they made developed their own style and didn't try to copy people. And I thought that was always something that really stood out at me too.
You know, I like that idea too. And in the second half of the show, we're going to talk about style and content and all that. But highlight coverage. I mean, you had broad coverage throughout your years. Mm-hmm. Anything stand out to you in terms of some of the interesting people you've met? Or
well, I said the very first year I was a sports director in '95, UWL football went on to win a national title, and then so that was right away I got thrown into the mix of a really big story. And of course, whenever I mention UWL football, you got to think about Roger Herring and the impact he had on so many people that he coached over the years, not just in wins and losses. And of course, I just think he's had such a tremendous impact on young men throughout the years as a coach, and young men that have grown up to be older men, now my age, and to see that and to still be in contact with those people, that has been a really big story. I think one of the bigger stories that I've ever covered. Number one, his coaching years. Number two, his retirement, and then just recently, a couple months ago, his passing and the impact that he had on the community.
And we watched, our whole family watched that tribute that you did to him, and I was just a quick comment on Roger Herring. I was asked on another station my thoughts, and I shared some of the same about his encouragement to me to be an official, football, collegiate, basketball, and then when I was coaching, I would go and ask him for advice on ice, 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 on for advice, ice, on ice.
When you're faced with the decision of selecting a monument to honor someone dear to you, call Lewiston Monuments for a no-obligation consultation. Lewiston Monument is a full-service monument company, serving families in Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin for over 4 generations. You'll find beautiful granite, marble, and bronze memorials, all at competitive prices. Their experts can help you design the perfect and unique memorial. Lewiston Monument. Call today or on the web at lewistonmonument.com.
You know, the thing I'm most proud of when I think about our company is the reputation that we've been able to build in this community. Our technicians have done a great job going out and performing magnificent jobs for the customer. And our customers have rewarded us with some really great reviews online.
We have over 150 5-star reviews online right now. Our technicians do a great job out there, and our reviews show it.
We can say without hesitation, when you choose Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, you'll be glad you did.
Welcome back to Seven Rivers Sports. This week, a conversation with legendary Scott Emerich. Well, you
legendary.
Legendary.
You're legendary. I'm just, I'm in the process.
So we talked a little bit before we went to break about the show you did at Roger Herring.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of reflecting back to some of the other stories you have done. I got a lot of things to ask you, by the way, so maybe we'll stretch this another half hour. Anyway, I remember a couple things that stood out.
Sure.
One was you did a story years ago about a young man that used to work for me and grew up in the club, Paul Service.
Oh, yeah.
You did a story about, the name of it was The Heart of the Team. Mm-hmm. He had a bad heart and he couldn't participate.
Yeah. And that really struck me at that time when I found out about his story. You know, you spend so much time as a kid thinking about growing up and playing for your local high school team. You go in grade school and junior high, and even in your younger years in high school, you think about those moments about being with your guys and playing high school sports, and then all of a sudden to have it kind of taken away from you for no reason that you did. There was nothing that you did to cause this, and like how heartbreaking is that? And but also what I remember about that story is about how the team rallied around him and say, no, even though you can't play, you're still part of the team, and you're going to be involved, and we're going to make you have a moment for you on the court. And I think that's another element to high school sports that maybe doesn't get talked about. We talk about wins and losses on the TV through the highlights and stuff, but it's all about relationships and teammates.
Well,
too.
funny you say that about relationships. Absolutely, just like coaching, teaching, and so on is all about relationship building. I'll have and our viewers know that Paul's service is doing very well. Now, that was many years ago he did that story, and I see him in the community. Real quickly, one of the best stories that you did too, and you were recognized for it, with the Wisconsin Broadcasting Association, the one on the NFL draft, Bill Schrader, the Golden Dream. I remember that story because you did it on the Aquinas State basketball teams. But let's just jump and pivot to style once. One thing I think is interesting about you that it is attractive is that you do not try to be an entertainer. I think there's a big difference between an entertainer and a broadcaster. Entertainers are like Stephen A. Smith. Entertainers are like Scott Van Pelt. Entertainers are like a TV version of Jim Rome. And when I go in to watch a broadcast, Scott, certainly personality is part of it. I'm not looking for somebody to be theatrical. I'm not looking for somebody to be all full of themselves. I'm looking for somebody to give the report, give the scores, but also I'm looking for somebody that understands the community, has knowledge, and has an eye for human interest stories.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's kind of what we want to do, or that's always been my goal, is to have your own style. There is a small part of being a TV person that I think that you need to bring a little bit of an entertainment value to it, as far as enthusiasm, clever vernacular, but you don't want to be a jokester or a comedian out there because it takes away from the story. So there are a lot of people that I've seen over the years, over the decades, who they'll bounce from market to market, and they're just all personality and not a lot of substance when it comes to reporting or showing the details of highlights and stories they want to do. They just want to be clever and funny and hope people will latch onto that. You can pick your moments to be clever and funny, but you can't take away from the foundation of what you want, and that is to get sports information out there that's happening locally. So,
and substance is a key word, but you want credibility, authenticity, not somebody that just comes on with a big smile and just tries to be cute. I mean, and that's what I like about your style. I looked at some things that I think kind of, the article I read was just exactly what I thought that's necessary for a broadcaster. Certainly communication skills, passion, which you have for the sport, investigative skills, I should say. But here's the thing that was always a question in my mind. When you get tips, and we do it here on the show, we do it on my radio broadcast, on something to cover. Certainly the first thing you do is look at the credibility of that tip, the authenticity of that tip. Is it something that you want to really broadcast? Because I'm sure you get lots of people that contact you in various ways saying, cover this, why is there inequality in gender coverage and all those things? So you need to look at all of that to determine what you put on the air.
Yeah, and it's really a day-to-day thing, Terry. I mean, we always try to, when it comes to choosing what to cover, what are the big games that day? You always want to try to get to the biggest games that day. You don't always get to them all. You don't always get to the big stories, but I think we've done a really good job over the years of getting to a lot of big games and big stories. And so that's kind of the goal. And you want to tell stories. you want the viewers to know that if there's a big game out there, I know where I can go to get the highlights and the information to see who won that game. And that's kind of what we want to be at News 19. It's just a reliable source.
Reliable. But, you know, here's the other thing, too. You need good cooperation, good relationships with schools from the entire area, because otherwise if you don't get call-in or a text or whatever it is, you don't have the scores.
Right. Yeah, we need cooperation from coaches and activities directors. Otherwise, our job just doesn't happen the way it should. I mean, if coaches don't call in their scores or give us a little tip on, hey, our team's doing well, we have this person, you should talk to this person, they're doing really well, then you know, we don't get to it, we don't know about it, and then sometimes you'll get an email from a viewer and says, hey, don't you know that this is going on? How could you not know that? I'm like, well, I haven't heard from that coach all season, and we haven't gotten a call from that particular team all year, so that's why we don't know about it. You know, your coaches and your activities directors have to be kind of a conduit to getting good stories.
But yeah, but their job is to market their team and make the community aware of their school, their athletes, their team. That's part of their job.
Yeah, I don't think not a lot of some activities directors are really good at it with social media and making sure their coaches call in scores and getting information out, and some coaches and programs and activities directors aren't so good. And the more we know up in our sports office, the better we can go about making decisions on what to cover.
One of the things that with radio, TV, and so on, particularly with your broadcasts and even with the show here or our TV coverage of games, you have to be able to be flexible, meaning you have to handle pressure, and you have to be able to handle, which you do such a great job, when there's some technology breakdowns.
Yeah. Fortunately, we don't have those as much anymore because everything is kind of on a computer and that sort of thing. But I tell you what, Terry, back in the day when we had tapes, we don't have tapes anymore. You were shooting on tapes. You could have a camera that breaks down out in the field. You could have a tape that gets put in the wrong order by somebody who puts it in the tape machine. You could have it queued up to the wrong spot. So, I mean, there are so many things that could go wrong like back in the day. But over the past 10 years or so, we don't deal with tapes anymore. Maybe 10 or 15 years. It's been quite a long time. So we don't see those anymore. But yeah, you got to be willing to roll with the punches. And I've seen enough things over the years to where if something breaks down, I can kind of just casually move on and move on to the next thing.
Well, and you're good at that. You're good at transitions from story to story and so on, or late breaking news. Let's sort of fast forward to into the horizon. What do you see as the future of sports and news on TV?
I think more live sports is going to happen, but by that I mean more like what you guys do at KQEG, a game of the week kind of thing. I think those things are becoming more and more prevalent, and to be honest, I think what happened over the past year with COVID, and which led to more live streams because fewer people were allowed to go watch games in person. I think you're going to see more live streams become a part of the landscape, particularly in high school, where maybe we didn't have as many a year or two ago, or maybe not even 10 years ago. Nobody knew what it was to do a live stream of a game of the broadcast. So you may see a school who maybe has a real strong athletic budget do games, all their games live via some sort of live stream. And I think that's going to become more and more prevalent. And we've certainly seen it with colleges.
I think one of the most enjoyable parts of your job, as I see you covering games, sort of the high school version of March Madness, both the boys and the girls, that is something you really enjoy, isn't it?
My favorite 2 weeks of the year is the girls and boys basketball state tournaments. Going down there to state, you're in a big venue, big crowds, big games, a statewide audience, and you get to tell the stories of these kids and these teams. And everybody has an interesting story to tell about how they got to state, the history of that program, and where they're going. And so those 2 weeks, yeah, those are my favorite.
When I can't travel and I'm not down there refereeing or broadcasting or watching, I watch you. As we close the show, you've been there since 1995. What's the future for Scott Emerich?
Well, hopefully I can finish out my career here. I'm getting closer towards the finish line. And then I think somewhere down the line is sort of like a retirement job. I wouldn't mind getting into some play-by-play, either on the radio or some of these live streams that develop, just as sort of a part-time gig. And I've also had some friends, Terry, encouraging me to get into refereeing after I call it quits. And I'm like, I'd be in my 60s. I don't know if I can run up and down the floor
you can't,
or a field like that.
Well, I'm on my way out as a referee. I'm sure a lot of viewers probably think, I wish he was out already. Yeah. But I'll be working another year or two, and then you could. I think we have about the same size. I'll give you my.
There we go. Yeah, I can have your gear, huh?
Rare opportunity to sit down with one of my friends who usually is on the other side, Scott Emerich, my guest this week on 7 Rivers Sports. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Terry, a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me.
We'll be back with some clips of a recent game right after this.
With our busy lives, it's a comfort to know that we can still remember loved ones in a traditional way with a monument. Lewiston Monuments in Lewiston, Minnesota has been helping families purchase a monument for over 4 generations. You'll find a large selection of beautiful granite, marble, and bronze monuments, all at competitive prices. And they're a full-service company, so they also do straightening, cleaning, and repair of monuments. Stop in or call for a no-obligation consultation, or visit lewistonmonument.com for more information.
You know, the thing I'm most proud of when I think about our company is the reputation that we've been able to build in this community. Our technicians have done a great job going out and performing magnificent jobs for the customer. And our customers have rewarded us with some really great reviews online.
We have over 150 5-star reviews online right now. Our technicians do a great job out there, and our reviews show it.
We can say without hesitation, when you choose Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, you'll be glad you did.
Carl and I were in West Salem on Friday as the Panthers would host the Tomah Timberwolves in an MVC matchup. As predicted, West Salem came out of the gate determined to get back on track after a loss to River Falls last week. They scored 19 points in the first quarter and 28 more in the second to take a 47-6 lead into intermission. Not much offense in the second half, with Panther reserves seeing plenty of action. Panther quarterback Brett McConkey was 5 for 9 for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 82 yards and 2 TDs. Noah LaFleur and Brennan Kennedy, along with Chris Calico, led the Panther defense. LaFleur was also perfect in PAT kicks with 6. Noah LaFleur and Brett McConkey received game balls for West Salem, while quarterback Tom Hesse and wide receiver Drew Brookman each were players of the game for Tomah. Tomah ends its season hosting Onalaska on Friday, while West Salem is at Holman. Final, West Salem 53 and Tomah 6. Well, that does it this week here on 7 Rivers Sports. I'm your host, Terry Erickson, hoping that you will have an active and a healthy week ahead.